I mean, I know we were going to talk about this subject of stress in the workplace for ordinary people, as it were, but it does make you wonder about stress inside Number 10, because apparently not only was Liz Truss compromised by a phone that was hacked, but apparently she recently, in the last few days of her premiership, became very stressed about the threat of nuclear war and what Putin was going to do, to the extent that she was even asking for hourly weather reports because she was worried about a nuclear fallout cloud being blown towards Britain. Yeah. Can you only imagine how any Prime Minister copes with this sort of stress?
Yeah, well, I mean, in that kind of a job, normally people are fairly resilient, but there comes a point in time when you just can't cope. I mean, this is quite an interesting survey from Silver Cloud Health, because what they did is they looked at 500 employers and 1,000 employees. And I think for most of us, whether it's politicians or nurses or managers or presenters on television, stress at work is the leading cause of sickness absence. It now represents something like 57% of all long-term sickness absence, the biggest cause of stress. And, sure, politicians, but, there are a lot of other people, normal people, who, experience stress these days. And think about it. We had the financial crime. I mean, you couldn't pick. My books are selling like hotcakes. You couldn't predict from the financial crisis of 2008. We went all the way through, people worried about their jobs, lots of people losing their jobs and everything else. Then just as we're coming out of it, we have Brexit, which divided the whole nation, caused a lot of insecurity, stress on people about what the future is going to look like, the economy, my job. And just when we're kind of trying to deal with that kind of issue, we get hit with a pandemic. Now it's the cost of living crisis, Ukraine, all of that. And the levels of stress on people in general, but also in the workplace, is astronomical. And the Silver Cloud report shows it. 50% say they're suffering from stress. It's affecting their ability to do their work properly. It's affecting their performance, their relationships. And employers are increasingly concerned about this because they're losing people.
But Carrie, we need to become more resilient, don't we? We can't change the world, so we need to change ourselves, don't we?
Well, two things. There's things you can do for yourself, right? And there are things that the employer has to do for you, help you create the right kind of culture. I was talking to an HR director a number of years ago of a big financial services business. And I said, why are you guys all of a sudden into this well-being stuff and doing stress management at work and all the rest of it? And he said to me, regrettable turnover. And I said, well, that sounds a nice concept. Maybe I should write a book about it. What is it? And he said, we can't afford to lose people. We lost so many people during the financial crisis. We want to retain the millennials and the Z generation. How do we do that? We have to create the right culture. We don't have to create a long working hours culture. We can let people work more flexibly. We should engage them in decision making. We need to do this. Our productivity per capita, we're the bottom of the G7 and on 17th in the G20 on productivity per capita. Our productivity hasn't been good for many, many years. And aside from just the health of people, we're not functioning well. And I think it's the way people are managed, the hours they work. And I think we need to do something pretty dramatic